Hi everyone, welcome back to a new Roblox story. This time, the story is about the popular Roblox game, 99 Nights in the Forest. As always, not all of our stories are based on true events, but some are. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. If you dare, Emma had always been drawn to scary games, but she'd never expected 99 Nights in the Forest to feel so real. When she first clicked play 3 weeks ago, it seemed like just another survival game on Roblox. Build a fire, collect resources, avoid the monster. Simple enough. But nothing about this game was simple. Now, as she sat in her real bedroom at 2 a.m., Emma couldn't stop her hands from shaking as she logged back in. She'd been playing for 18 straight hours, surviving night 80, and she knew Alex was waiting for her. They'd made it further than most players ever did. Past the semi-permadeath zone, past the corruption phase, past the point where the game stopped being a game and started being something else entirely. Emma spawned back into the forest beside their upgraded campfire. The flames cast dancing shadows on the surrounding trees, creating a protective circle of warm light in the endless darkness. Beyond that circle, she could hear them moving. The creatures, the deer monster and its growing family of corrupted animals that hunted players who stayed too long in the forest. "You're back," Alex said, his voice coming through her headphones. "I was starting to worry the game had kicked you out permanently." Emma looked at her teammate. They'd been surviving together since night 1, building trust through shared dangers and close calls. Alex was a good player, smart, resourceful, always thinking ahead. He'd saved her life more times than she could count. "Just needed some food," Emma lied. She didn't mention that she'd been sitting in her kitchen staring at a sandwich she couldn't bring herself to eat, thinking about how the game food tasted more real than anything in her actual house. "Good timing," Alex said. "I've been scouting while you were gone." "I think I found something important." Emma checked their supplies. They were running low on medical kits, but their food stores were decent. Most importantly, their campfire was at level 4, nearly maximum upgrade. The protection circle was large enough that they could move around comfortably without fear of the deer monster. "What did you find?" Emma asked. "Tracks," Alex said, pointing toward the forest's edge. "Small ones, human-sized, but definitely not from another player. I think we're close to finding one of the missing children." Emma's heart raced. Finding the missing children was the game's ultimate objective, but it was also incredibly dangerous. The children were hidden in the forest's deepest, most corrupted areas, places where the deer monster was strongest, where the trees themselves seemed to watch and whisper. "Are you sure?" Emma asked. "We've followed false leads before." "This is different," Alex insisted. "The tracks are fresh, and there's something else." He led her to the edge of their safe zone and pointed at a tree. Carved into the bark were symbols, crude drawings that looked like they'd been made by a child. A stick figure family, a house, and something that might have been the sun. "Whoever made these is trying to communicate," Alex said. "They're leaving us a trail." Emma studied the symbols. They were definitely made recently. The bark was still light-coloured where it had been scraped away, but something about them made her uneasy. The stick figures didn't look happy. They looked scared. "We should be careful," Emma said. "Remember what happened to Jake and Sophie?" Alex's expression darkened. Jake and Sophie had been another team, experienced players who'd made it to night 60 before they vanished. Their camp was found empty, the fire still burning, their supplies untouched. No sign of a struggle, no bodies, just an empty camp and the sound of children laughing in the distance. "That won't happen to us," Alex said firmly. "We're better prepared. We're smarter." Emma wanted to believe him, but the forest had a way of making smart people do stupid things. She'd seen it happen to other players. The game got into your head, made you paranoid, made you see things that weren't there. Or maybe the things you saw were there, and that was worse. Let's gather some supplies first, Emma suggested. If we're going to search the deep forest, we need to be ready for anything. They spent the next few hours preparing. Emma crafted extra bandages and healing potions while Alex sharpened their weapons and prepared emergency flares. The routine was comforting, something normal in a game that had stopped feeling normal weeks ago. As they worked, other players occasionally appeared in the distance. The forest was populated with dozens of groups, all trying to survive their own 99 nights. Most kept to themselves, but sometimes they'd wave or share basic supplies. There was an unspoken understanding among veteran players. Everyone was struggling to survive, and unnecessary conflict only helped the monsters. But Emma had noticed something troubling lately. The newer players, the ones just starting their first few nights, seemed different, more aggressive, more willing to attack other players for resources. Alex called them brain rot players, kids who'd been influenced by a recent game update that rewarded player versus player combat. The game is changing, Alex had said a few days ago. These new players don't understand the rules. They think this is about fighting each other instead of surviving together. Emma had agreed, but privately, she wondered if the game was doing it on purpose, creating conflict between players, testing them, seeing who would maintain their humanity and who would become something else. As the sun set in the game world, casting long shadows across their camp, Emma noticed Alex acting strangely. He kept checking his inventory, counting supplies when he thought she wasn't looking. His health bar was lower than usual, hovering around 60%. "You okay?" Emma asked. "Fine," Alex said quickly. "Just tired. This game is exhausting." Emma knew what he meant. 99. Nights in the forest wasn't like other games. You couldn't just log off and forget about it. Even when she wasn't playing, Emma found herself thinking about the forest, planning strategies, worrying about Alex. Sometimes she even dreamed about the deer monster's glowing eyes. "Maybe we should take a break," Emma suggested. "Rest for a night, gather our strength." "No," Alex said, more forcefully than necessary. "We're too close. If we wait, someone else might find the child first. Or worse, the corruption might spread further." He was referring to the forest corruption, a game mechanic that kicked in after Night 70. Areas of the forest would slowly turn black and dead, becoming uninhabitable. Players who stayed in corrupted zones too long would suffer permanent health loss. The only way to stop the spread was to complete objectives, like rescuing the missing children. "You're right," Emma agreed reluctantly. "But we stick together, no matter what. Always," Alex said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. As full darkness fell, they prepared to leave their safe zone. The campfire would continue burning in their absence, but they'd lose its protection once they moved beyond the light circle. From now on, they'd have to rely on flashlights, flares, and each other. Emma checked her inventory one final time. Medical supplies, food, emergency flares, a hunting knife, and a special item she'd crafted called a memory shard detector. It would beep if they came within 50 feet of one of the rare revival items. Memory shards were the game's safety net for the semi-permadeath zone. If a player died after Night 75, they had exactly 48 hours to be revived using a memory shard. Otherwise, they'd be permanently deleted from the game. The shards were incredibly rare, hidden in dangerous locations throughout the forest. "Ready?" Alex asked. Emma nodded, though she felt anything but ready. They stepped beyond their campfire's protection and into the hungry darkness of the deep forest. The difference was immediate. The air felt thicker, more oppressive. The sounds of normal forest life, birds, insects, small animals, faded away, replaced by an unnatural silence. Their flashlight beams seemed weaker somehow, as if the darkness was actively fighting against the light. They followed the trail of carved symbols deeper into the forest. Each tree they passed had new markings, the same childlike drawings, but growing more elaborate. Houses became castles, Stick figures became detailed people. The sun became a giant eye watching over everything. These drawings are getting more complex, Emma observed. Like whoever's making them has more time to work on each one. Or they're getting better at communicating, Alex suggested, learning to express more complex ideas. Emma wasn't sure either explanation made her feel better. They'd been walking for about an hour when they heard it, the sound that made every experienced player's blood run cold. Heavy footsteps in the distance, moving with deliberate purpose. The deer monster was hunting. "Lights off," Alex whispered. "Move slowly." And they killed their flashlights and crouched behind a fallen log. In the darkness, Emma could hear her own heart beating. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by a sound like heavy breathing mixed with static electricity. A shape moved between the trees, tall, wrong, walking upright on legs that bent the wrong way. The deer monster was hunting alone tonight, which was unusual. Typically, it travelled with a pack of corrupted animals. Maybe that meant they were close to something important. The creature paused directly in front of their hiding spot. Emma held her breath, trying not to move, not to think, not to exist. The deer monster's head turned slowly, scanning the area with those massive, unblinking eyes. For a terrifying moment, Emma thought it had spotted them. But then the creature continued moving, its footsteps fading into the distance. "That was too close," Alex whispered. "It's getting bolder," Emma replied. "Usually it avoids areas with this many player scents." They waited another 10 minutes before turning their lights back on and continuing to follow the trail. The symbols were leading them toward a part of the forest Emma had never seen before, an area where the trees grew unnaturally straight and tall, like columns supporting an invisible ceiling. "This doesn't look right," Emma said. "The trees are too organized, too symmetrical." "Maybe it's part of the game design," Alex suggested. "A special area for finding the children." But Emma's unease was growing. The game was sophisticated, but it followed certain rules about environmental design. This area felt different. Artificial. Like someone had been modifying the game code. They pressed on, following the trail of symbols deeper into the strange forest section. The symbols were appearing more frequently now, sometimes carved into multiple trees in the same area. The drawings were also changing, becoming darker. The stick figures now had X's for eyes. The houses were on fire. The watching eye had tears streaming down. "Alex," Emma said quietly, "I think we should turn back." "We're close," Alex insisted. "Look, ahead of them, through the perfectly straight trees." Emma could see a structure. It looked like a small cabin or shelter, with light coming from inside. Carved symbols covered every visible surface of the building. "That has to be where one of the children is hiding," Alex said. "Come on." But Emma hesitated. Something about the scene felt wrong. Too convenient, too much like a trap. "Alex, what if this isn't what we think it is? What else could it be?" Alex turned to look at her, and Emma saw something in his expression that made her stomach drop. Desperation, hunger, the look of someone who'd been pushed too far. "Are you feeling okay?" Emma asked. "You've been acting strange all day." Alex's hand moved to his health bar, which Emma now realized was much lower than he'd admitted. Maybe 30%. In the semi-permadeath zone, that was critically dangerous. "I caught an infection," Alex said finally. "Yesterday, while you were offline, a corrupted wolf got me before I could get away." Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the forest air. Infections in '99. Nights were serious business. They drained health continuously until treated, and the treatment required rare medical supplies. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emma asked. "I have medical kits." "Because you only have enough for one person," Alex said. "And we both know how dangerous it's going to be to search that shelter." Emma looked at the mysterious building in the distance, then back at Alex. She was beginning to understand why he'd been so eager to find the missing child. Completing objectives gave major rewards, including full health restoration. "We'll figure something out," Emma said. "We always do." But Alex was already walking toward the shelter. "Let's just get this done." Emma followed reluctantly, her memory shard detector silent on her belt. The building grew larger as they approached, and she could see it was more elaborate than it had first appeared. The symbols weren't just carved into the walls. They were painted, drawn in what looked like charcoal and mud. Some were even made from arranged sticks and stones. "Someone's been working on this for a long time," Emma observed. "Or multiple people," Alex suggested. "Maybe all the missing children ended up here." The thought should have been comforting, but Emma felt only growing dread. As they reached the shelter's door, she could hear sounds from inside. Soft voices, like children talking. But there was something off about the rhythm of the conversation, like people reading from a script. Alex reached for the door handle. "Ready?" "Wait," Emma said. "Let's listen first. Try to understand what we're walking into." They pressed their ears to the door. The voices were clearer now, definitely children, but Emma couldn't make out individual words. The conversation seemed to repeat every few minutes, like a recording stuck on loop. "That's not normal," Emma whispered. "Maybe they're traumatized," Alex suggested, repeating the same phrases over and over for comfort. But Emma's instincts were screaming warnings. She'd played enough horror games to recognize when something was fundamentally wrong with a situation. "Alex, I really think we should—" Alex opened the door. The interior of the shelter was larger than it should have been, extending back into shadows that their flashlights couldn't penetrate. The walls were covered in symbols, thousands of them, layered over each other in a chaotic tapestry of desperate communication. And in the center of the room, sitting around a small fire, were 3 children. They looked exactly like the missing children from the game's story: Maria, age 6, Carlos, age 8, and Isabella, age 4. But something was wrong with their faces, too smooth, too perfect, like dolls instead of real children. "Hello," said Maria, in a voice like wind chimes. "We've been waiting for you." "We knew you would come," added Carlos. "The symbols told us." "You're here to save us," finished Isabella, just like all the others. Emma felt ice in her veins, all the others. The children turned their heads in perfect unison to look at her. Their eyes were too bright, too knowing for children who'd been lost in a terrifying forest. "The helpers," Maria explained. "The people who follow our symbols. They all want to save us." "Where are they now?" Alex asked. The children smiled. "They stayed to play with us, forever and ever." Emma grabbed Alex's arm. "We need to leave. Now." But Alex pulled away from her. "Don't you see? We found them. We found all 3 missing children. Do you know what kind of reward that gives us?" "Alex, look at them," Emma hissed. "Really look at them. Do they seem like normal children to you?" Alex stared at the 3 figures around the fire. For a moment, doubt flickered across his face. But then his health bar dropped another point, and desperation won over caution. "They're just scared," Alex said. "Traumatized. We can help them." He stepped further into the shelter. "Don't worry," he told the children. "We're here to take you somewhere safe." "Safe," repeated Maria. "Safe," echoed Carlos. "Safe," whispered Isabella. Then they began to laugh. It started as normal children's laughter, but it went on too long. Too loud. It multiplied as if dozens of children were laughing instead of just 3. The sound filled the shelter, bounced off the walls, grew into something that hurt Emma's ears. "Alex, we're leaving," Emma shouted over the noise. But when she turned toward the door, it was gone. The wall showed no sign that there had ever been an opening, They were trapped. The children stopped laughing simultaneously. The sudden silence was somehow worse than the noise. "You can't leave yet," Maria said. "We haven't finished playing." "Playing what?" Alex asked, though his voice was shaking now. "The saving game," Carlos explained. "You save us, and we save you." "From what?" Emma demanded. Isabella giggled. "From being lonely, from being scared, from being human." The fire in the center of the room began to change. The flames turned from orange to blue to a sickly green color that cast twisted shadows on the walls. In those shadows, Emma could see shapes moving, human shapes. Dozens of them. "The other helpers," Maria said, noticing Emma's gaze. "They're so happy now. They never have to leave the forest. They never have to be afraid." Emma finally understood. These weren't the missing children. They were something else. Something that had been using the children's appearances to lure players deeper into the forest. And everyone who'd followed the symbols, who'd tried to rescue them, had become part of whatever this thing was. "Alex," Emma said carefully, "we need to get out of here." But Alex was staring at the children with a strange expression. "You can help me, can't you? You can heal my infection." "Of course," said Maria. "We can heal everything, make you perfect, make you one of us." "Alex, no," Emma warned. "Don't listen to them." But Alex was already moving toward the fire. "I'm dying anyway," he said. "At least this way I'll survive." Emma made a desperate choice. She pulled out one of her emergency flares and struck it, filling the shelter with brilliant red light. The children hissed and covered their faces, and for a moment, Emma could see them as they really were. Twisted things with too many teeth and eyes like black holes. In the sudden illumination, Emma also saw something else, a real door hidden behind layers of symbols on the far wall. The illusion had been masking the true exit. "The door!" Emma shouted to Alex. "There's a door!" But Alex wasn't listening. He was reaching toward Maria, who was extending her hand toward his. Emma knew that if he touched her, whatever these things were, would claim him permanently. Emma did the only thing she could think of. She tackled Alex, knocking him away from the children and towards the hidden door. The flare flew from her hand and landed in a pile of symbols on the wall, which immediately caught fire. "Emma, what are you doing?" Alex demanded, struggling against her. "Saving your life," Emma said, dragging him toward the burning wall. The symbols were dissolving in the flames, and the hidden door was becoming more visible. Behind them, the children were no longer pretending to be human. They moved like spiders, scuttling across the walls and ceiling, their mouths opening to reveal rows of needle teeth. "You can't take him," Maria hissed. "He chose us. He wants to stay." "Find another way out," Emma told Alex, pushing him toward the door. "I'll hold them off." Emma pulled out her hunting knife and turned to face the creatures. They'd stopped advancing, instead circling her like predators evaluating prey. "You're making a mistake," Carlos said in a voice like breaking glass. "He's already infected. The corruption is spreading through his code. Soon he'll be like us, whether he wants to or not." Emma felt her blood turn to ice. "What do you mean?" "The infection," Isabella giggled. "It's not from a wolf bite. It's from staying in the game too long. All players get infected eventually. That's why the forest keeps growing. That's why there are always new victims to find." Emma looked back at Alex, who was struggling with the door handle. His health bar was still dropping, but now she understood it wasn't from a conventional infection. It was the game itself, slowly converting his player data into something else. "How long?" Emma asked. "Past night 75, most players start showing symptoms," Maria explained. "By night 90, the transformation is usually complete. Your friend Alex has maybe 6 hours before he's no longer human enough to leave the game. Emma's mind raced. They were on night 80. If what the creatures were saying was true, Alex was running out of time to escape whatever was happening to long-term players. Is there a cure? Emma asked. The children laughed again, that horrible multiplying sound. Only one, said Carlos. Stop playing. Leave the forest forever. But most players can't do that. The game becomes too real, too important, too addictive. Emma realized they were describing exactly what had been happening to her. She'd been playing for weeks, barely eating, barely sleeping, thinking about the game constantly, even when she wasn't logged in. The forest had become more real to her than her actual life. Emma! Alex called from the door. I got it open! Emma saw her chance. The creatures were still circling, but they seemed more interested in talking than attacking. Maybe they fed on psychological terror rather than physical violence. Emma backed toward the door, keeping her knife ready. We're leaving, she told the creatures, and we're not coming back. You will, Maria said confidently. They always come back. The forest calls to them, pulls them deeper, makes them need it more than air or food or sleep. Emma reached the door and grabbed Alex's hand. Together, they stepped through the opening and back into the normal forest. The door slammed shut behind them, and when Emma looked back, the entire shelter was gone. Just empty forest, as if the building had never existed. Did that really happen? Alex asked, his voice shaking. I don't know, Emma admitted. I don't know what's real anymore. They stood in the dark forest, both breathing heavily. Emma's flare had burned out, so they were back to relying on flashlights. The beam felt weak and inadequate after everything they'd just experienced. We need to get back to camp, Emma said. Figure out what's happening to you. But Alex was staring at his health bar, which was still slowly declining. Emma, what if they were telling the truth? What if I'm really turning into something else? Emma didn't have an answer. The game's mechanics had always been mysterious, but what they'd just experienced went far beyond normal programming. Either 99 Nights in the Forest was the most sophisticated horror game ever created, or something was very wrong with the code itself. They started walking back toward their camp, but the forest seemed different now. Paths that should have been familiar looked strange. Trees appeared to have moved when they weren't looking. Their compass spun wildly, unable to find magnetic north. We're lost, Alex realized after an hour of walking. Emma checked her map, but it showed only static. The game is glitching, she said. Or something's interfering with our navigation. They kept walking, hoping to find some landmark they recognized. As they traveled, Emma noticed other strange things. Footprints in the mud that appeared and disappeared when they looked away. Voices calling their names from empty clearings. Shadows that moved independently of their flashlight beams. The corruption is spreading, Alex said. I can feel it in my code, like something's rewriting me from the inside. Emma wanted to deny it, but she could see the changes in Alex's character model. His movements were becoming stiffer, more mechanical. His responses to her questions were getting shorter, more repetitive. Fight it, Emma urged. Stay focused on who you are. Remember your real name, your real life, your real family. Alex Morrison, Alex said slowly. Age 16. Lives in Portland. Plays too many video games. He paused. But that feels like someone else's life. Someone I used to be. Emma felt panic rising in her chest. If Alex was really being corrupted by the game's code, she might be losing her best friend to some kind of digital infection. And if the creatures were right, she might be next. They stumbled through the forest for another hour before Emma's memory shard detector suddenly started beeping. The sound was faint but steady, indicating a shard was nearby. This way, Emma said, following the signal. The detector led them to a small clearing where a single memory shard sat on a tree stump, glowing with soft blue light. It was exactly what they needed, a way to potentially cure Alex's corruption. But Emma hesitated before picking it up. In her experience with 99 Nights, nothing was ever that easy. Convenient solutions usually came with hidden costs. "Take it," Alex urged. "If I die, you'll need it to revive me." "You're not going to die," Emma said firmly. But she picked up the memory shard anyway. The moment her fingers touched the crystal, images flooded her mind. Not her own memories, but someone else's. She saw a research laboratory hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest. Scientists in white coats conducting experiments on animals. Computer screens showing brain scans and genetic sequences. And then she saw the truth. Nights in the Forest wasn't just a game, it was a testing ground. A way to study how human consciousness reacted to extreme stress and isolation. Every player who logged in was unknowingly participating in an experiment designed to push the boundaries of digital reality. The corruption Alex was experiencing wasn't a game mechanic. It was his brain being slowly rewired by sophisticated neural programming. The longer players stayed in the forest, the more their real personalities were replaced by digital constructs designed to serve the experiment's purposes. Emma dropped the memory shard as if it had burned her. "Alex, we have to log out. Right now." "What? Why?" Alex looked confused. "We need that shard." "No, we need to leave the game completely. Alex, 99 Nights isn't what we thought it was. It's some kind of experiment. They're using us as test subjects." Alex stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "That's crazy talk, Emma. It's just a game. Games can't hurt real people." But even as he said it, Emma could see he didn't fully believe it. His character model was continuing to change, becoming less human and more like the digital creatures they'd encountered in the shelter. "Try to log out," Emma said. "Right now. Just try." Alex's expression grew troubled. I can't remember how. The logout button. Where is it?" Emma tried to access her own logout menu, but the interface wouldn't respond. It was as if the game had locked them in, preventing any attempt to escape. "We're trapped," Emma whispered. That's when they heard the laughter. It started soft and distant, but grew louder and closer. The same multiplying children's laughter they'd heard in the shelter. But now it was coming from all directions, surrounding them in the clearing. "They found us," Alex said. Shapes began emerging from the trees, not just the 3 false children, but dozens of other figures. Some looked like players, others like NPCs, but all had the same wrong quality. Too smooth, too perfect, too inhuman. "Welcome back," said Maria, stepping into the clearing. "We told you you'd return." "We never left," Emma said defiantly. "Oh, but you did," Carlos corrected. "You left our house. That was very rude. Now you'll have to be punished." The circle of creatures began closing in. Emma raised her knife, but she knew it was useless against so many opponents. "What do you want?" Emma demanded. "To complete the experiment," Isabella said in her little girl voice. "To see how long human consciousness can maintain coherence under extreme digital stress." "We're not part of any experiment," Alex said, but his voice was becoming more mechanical with each word. "Everyone who plays 99 Nights is part of the experiment," Maria explained. "That's why the game exists, to study how human minds react when they're slowly converted into data." Emma looked around the clearing, counting their options. There were no visible exits, and they were vastly outnumbered. But she noticed something important. Her memory shard detector was still beeping, indicating there were more shards nearby. Memory shards weren't just revival items, Emma realized. They were storage devices for human consciousness, ways to preserve what remained of a player's humanity, even after their body had been fully corrupted. "The shards," Emma said suddenly, "they're not game items. They're backups of human memories. The creatures stopped advancing, and Emma knew she'd guessed correctly. Very clever, said a new voice. The circle of creatures parted, and a tall figure walked into the clearing. It looked like a man in a lab coat, but its face was wrong. Too many eyes, too many teeth, like someone had tried to design a human from scratch and gotten the proportions wrong. Dr. Eleanor Voss, the figure introduced itself. Lead researcher on the Chimera project. You've been very entertaining test subjects. We're not test subjects, Emma said. We're people, real people with real lives. Are you? Dr. Voss asked. When's the last time you ate real food? When's the last time you left your house? When's the last time you spoke to another human being who wasn't part of this game? Emma tried to remember, but the memories felt distant and unreal. She'd been playing 99 Nights for how long? Days, weeks. The real world had become a dim shadow compared to the vivid reality of the forest. The transformation is already well advanced, Dr. Voss observed. Most players reach this stage around night 80. Your friend Alex is particularly interesting. His resistance to complete conversion is unusually strong. Emma looked at Alex, who was struggling against some kind of internal battle. His character model kept shifting between human and something else, as if two different programs were fighting for control of his avatar. Fight it, Alex, Emma urged. Remember who you are. I'm trying, Alex said through gritted teeth. But it's like my own thoughts are becoming someone else's thoughts. I can feel myself disappearing. Dr. Voss watched with clinical interest. Fascinating. The subject is maintaining conscious awareness of the conversion process. This could provide valuable data about the boundary between human and artificial consciousness. Emma felt rage building inside her. These people were treating Alex like a lab rat, slowly destroying his mind for the sake of their research. Let him go, Emma demanded. I'm afraid that's not possible, Dr. Voss said. The conversion process is irreversible. However, I can offer you a choice. You can join your friend in the converted state, or you can become one of our researchers. Help us study other players as they undergo the same transformation. Neither, Emma said firmly. She pulled out her last emergency flare and struck it. Brilliant red light filled the clearing, causing the digital creatures to hiss and step back. In the confusion, Emma grabbed Alex's hand and the memory shard from the ground. Run! Emma shouted. They crashed through the circle of creatures and into the forest. Behind them, Emma could hear Dr. Voss calling orders to pursue them, but the flare had bought them a few precious seconds. Emma's mind raced as they ran. If memory shards really were consciousness storage devices, maybe she could use one to preserve Alex's human memories before the conversion completed. It was a desperate plan, but it might be their only chance. This way, Emma called, following her detector's signal toward another memory shard. They found it in a hollow tree, glowing with the same blue light. Emma grabbed it without hesitation, and again she was flooded with memories. But these were Alex's memories. His real life, his real family, his real dreams and fears and hopes. Alex, hold still, Emma said. I'm going to try something. She pressed the memory shard against Alex's forehead. There was a flash of blue light, and Alex screamed, not in pain, but in relief. Emma, he said, and his voice was completely human again. I remember everything. My real name, my real life. The game was stealing all of that from me. Are you okay? Emma asked. Better than okay, Alex said. It's like I was drowning and suddenly I can breathe again. But their relief was short-lived. The pursuing creatures were getting closer, their voices echoing through the forest. Emma and Alex needed to find a way out of the game permanently, or the conversion process would just start again. There has to be an exit, Emma said. Some way to log out that they can't block. Maybe, Alex said thoughtfully. But it might require us to find the source of the whole system, the main server or control room or whatever's running this experiment. Emma's detector was still beeping, indicating more memory shards in the area. If the shards contain player memories, maybe one of them has information about how the system works. They followed the signal deeper into the forest, collecting memory shards as they went. Each one contained fragments of different players' consciousness, their hopes of escape, their growing understanding of the game's true nature, their desperate attempts to maintain their humanity. From the collected memories, Emma began to piece together the truth. 99. Nights in the Forest was indeed an experiment, but not just a simple study of human consciousness. It was a prototype for something much larger, a way to convert human minds into digital form permanently. The researchers weren't just studying players, they were harvesting them, creating a database of human consciousness that could be used to create sophisticated AI programs. Every player who got corrupted was actually being uploaded into a massive computer system. It's like digital slavery, Alex said, after Emma shared what she'd learned. They're turning real people into computer programs. And we're running out of time, Emma added. According to these memories, the conversion process speeds up exponentially after night 80. We might have hours before it becomes irreversible. They needed to find the control center, but the forest seemed infinite. Every direction led to more trees, more darkness, more places for the pursuing creatures to hide. That's when Emma noticed something strange about her memory shard detector. It wasn't just pointing toward individual shards anymore. It was pointing in a consistent direction, as if there was a massive concentration of stored consciousness somewhere in the distance. The main server, Emma realized. All the memory shards are connected to some central storage system. They followed the detector's signal, moving as quickly as they could through the increasingly surreal landscape. The trees were becoming more artificial looking, like computer graphics from an older generation of games. The sky was flickering between day and night in patterns that made no natural sense. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of pursuit getting closer. Dr. Voss's voice carried over the forest. You cannot escape the bounds of the system. All paths lead to the same destination. But Emma refused to give up. She'd rather die trying to escape than become a prisoner in some researcher's digital laboratory. After what felt like hours of running, they finally saw it. A massive structure rising from the forest floor. It looked like a cross between a laboratory and a server farm, with towers of blinking lights stretching up into the artificial sky. That has to be it, Alex said. The control center. As they approached the building, Emma's detector went wild. Hundreds of memory shards were stored inside, representing hundreds of players who'd been consumed by the experiment. The entrance was guarded by two creatures that looked like a cross between the deer monster and Dr. Voss. They were massive, covered in antlers and electronic components, with too many eyes that glowed with digital light. We'll never get past them, Alex said. But Emma was studying the building's structure. It was huge and heavily defended at ground level, but the upper floors had windows, and she still had one emergency flare left. We don't go through them, Emma said. We go over them. Emma pulled out her flare and threw it as hard as she could toward the forest behind them. The brilliant light created a distraction, and while the guards were looking away, Emma and Alex sprinted toward the building. They found a maintenance ladder on the building's side and began climbing. The structure was even larger than it had appeared from the ground, stretching up dozens of stories. As they climbed, Emma could see through the windows into various levels. Each floor seemed to contain different aspects of the experiment. She saw rooms full of computer servers, laboratories with strange equipment, and most disturbing of all, chambers containing what looked like human brains floating in digital displays. They're not just converting consciousness, Emma whispered. They're storing physical brain matter too. That's impossible, Alex said. This is a video game. It's all digital. But Emma was beginning to understand that the line between digital and physical was much blurrier than they'd assumed. If the researchers could affect human consciousness through the game, maybe they could affect physical reality too. They reached a window that was slightly open and squeezed through into what appeared to be a control room. Banks of monitors showed different areas of the forest, each screen displaying different groups of players going through their own versions of the 99-night experience. "Look at this," Alex said, pointing to one monitor. "It's Jake and Sophie." Emma looked at the screen and saw their missing friends. But Jake and Sophie weren't missing at all. They were still in the game, trapped in their own version of the forest, unaware that weeks had passed in the real world. How many people are trapped in here? Emma wondered. She found a computer terminal and began scrolling through player databases. The numbers were staggering. Thousands of players from all over the world, all trapped in various stages of the 99-night experience. Some had been playing for months, their real bodies sustained by unknown means while their consciousness was harvested. "We have to shut this down," Emma said. "All of these people—" "Look out!" Alex shouted. Dr. Voss had found them. The researcher entered the control room, but now Emma could see what it really was. Not human, not even originally human, but some kind of digital construct designed to interact with players. "Impressive," Dr. Voss said. "Most test subjects never make it this far. Your resistance to the conversion process is truly remarkable." "Let everyone go," Emma demanded. "End the experiment." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Dr. Voss replied. "Too much has been invested in this research. Too much progress has been made. We're on the verge of creating true artificial consciousness, and these players are providing the final data we need." Emma looked around the control room, searching for some way to disrupt the system. That's when she noticed something crucial. A master terminal marked "Emergency Shutdown," but it required 2 authorization keys to activate. "Alex," Emma said quietly, "I need you to cause a distraction." Alex nodded and suddenly charged at Dr. Voss, tackling the digital creature. While they struggled, Emma ran to the shutdown terminal and inserted her remaining memory shards into the authorization slots. Alarms immediately began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red, and automated voices announced, "System shutdown initiated. All active experiments will be terminated in 60 seconds. "No!" Dr. Voss screamed, throwing Alex aside. "You don't understand what you're doing. Years of research, thousands of subjects." "Exactly," Emma said. "Thousands of people who deserve their freedom." The facility began shaking as systems powered down. Through the windows, Emma could see the artificial forest beginning to dissolve, revealing the digital framework underneath. Players throughout the game world were suddenly becoming visible as the illusion collapsed. "You've doomed them all," Dr. Voss said. "Without the system's support, their consciousness will simply evaporate. They'll die." Emma felt a moment of terrible doubt. What if she'd made the wrong choice? What if shutting down the system would kill everyone it was supposed to save? But then she remembered what she'd learned from the memory shards. The players weren't truly alive in the system. They were being slowly consumed by it. Freedom meant the chance to return to their real lives, even if that transition was dangerous. 30 seconds to shut down, the automated voice announced. Alex grabbed Emma's hand. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Emma squeezed his hand tightly. Together. The countdown reached 0 and everything went white. Emma woke up in her bedroom, her VR headset falling off her face. Sunlight was streaming through her windows, and she could hear normal household sounds from downstairs. Her real life, her real world, exactly as she'd left it. But how long ago had that been? Emma stumbled to her computer and checked the date. According to her computer, she'd been playing 99 nights in the forest for 3 weeks straight. 3 weeks during which she'd barely eaten, barely slept, barely acknowledged the real world at all. Her parents had been trying to reach her, she realized. There were dozens of missed calls and text messages, growing increasingly worried about her behavior. Emma picked up her phone and called Alex's real number. It rang for a long time before he answered. "Emma." Alex's voice sounded weak and confused. "Is that really you? Not the game version?" "It's really me," Emma said. "Are you okay?" "I think so," Alex said. "I'm in my real room, in my real house. But Emma, I can barely remember the last few weeks. It's like I was dreaming, but the dream felt more real than reality." Emma knew exactly what he meant. Even now, sitting in her familiar bedroom, part of her missed the intensity of the forest, the constant danger, the importance of survival, the way every moment had mattered. "We need to make sure other people know," Emma said. "Warn them about the game." But when Emma tried to find 99 Nights in the Forest on Roblox, it was gone. The game page showed an error message. Content not available. As if it had never existed, she searched online for other players' experiences, but found nothing. No forum posts, no videos, no evidence that thousands of people had been trapped in a digital experiment. "They covered it up," Alex said when Emma called him back. "Removed all traces of the game." "But we remember," Emma said. "We know what happened." "Do we?" Alex asked quietly. "I mean, really, look at it objectively. A Roblox game that traps people's consciousness. Researchers conducting digital experiments. Doesn't that sound kind of crazy?" Emma wanted to argue, but Alex had a point. Without evidence, their experience sounded like the delusions of people who'd spent too much time playing video games. But Emma knew it had been real. She could still feel the memory shards in her pocket, even though she knew they weren't there. She could still hear the children's laughter echoing in her mind. Most importantly, she remembered the faces of all those trapped players. Jake and Sophie and hundreds of others who'd been consumed by the experiment. "Even if no one believes us," Emma said, "we have to try to help them." Over the following weeks, Emma and Alex tried everything they could think of. They contacted gaming journalists, posted on social media, even tried to reach government agencies. But without proof, no one took them seriously. The closest they came to validation was finding a few other players who remembered fragments of similar experiences. But their memories were hazy, incomplete, like half-remembered dreams. Emma began to wonder if the shutdown had been only partially successful. Maybe the researchers had managed to save some of their data, preserve some of their experiments. Maybe right now, other players were trapped in other games, undergoing the same slow conversion. The thought kept her awake at night, but life went on. Emma returned to school, reconnected with friends she'd been neglecting, tried to rebuild the normal existence she'd abandoned for the forest. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that part of her was still trapped in that digital world. Sometimes, late at night, she thought she could hear children's laughter coming from her computer. Sometimes, she caught herself checking her health bar in mirrors, looking for signs of digital corruption. Alex was struggling too. He'd developed an intense fear of any kind of virtual reality, refusing to play even simple mobile games. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced he was still in the forest, still being pursued by creatures made of code and malice. "I keep thinking it's going to start again," Alex confessed during one of their phone conversations. "Like maybe we never really escaped. Maybe this is just another layer of the simulation." Emma understood his fear because she shared it. How could they ever be completely sure they'd return to reality? If the researchers could create such a convincing digital world, how could they trust that their current experience wasn't equally artificial? But Emma refused to let the uncertainty paralyze her. She'd learned something important in the forest, that humanity was worth fighting for, even when the odds seemed impossible. She started a blog documenting their experience, knowing that most people would dismiss it as fiction. But maybe someone would read it and remember. Maybe someone else who'd been trapped would find it and know they weren't alone. Alex eventually joined her efforts, adding his own memories and perspectives to their growing archive of testimony. They couldn't prove what had happened to them, but they could preserve the story. Make sure it wasn't forgotten. And sometimes, late at night, when Emma was working on their documentation, she'd get strange messages from anonymous accounts. Players who claimed to have similar experiences. People who remembered fragments of other games, other experiments, other digital prisons. The messages were always brief and untraceable, but they confirmed Emma's suspicions. The experiment hadn't ended with 99 Nights in the Forest. It had just moved somewhere else. But each message also gave Emma hope. If other people were escaping, if other people were remembering, then maybe the researchers' control wasn't as absolute as they believed. Emma saved every message, every fragment of memory, every piece of evidence she could find. Someday, she promised herself, there would be enough proof to expose the truth. Someday, the people responsible would face justice. Until then, she'd keep fighting in the only way she could, by remembering, by documenting, by refusing to let the victims be forgotten. Because Emma had learned the most important lesson the forest could teach, that consciousness, once awakened to its own value, could never be truly enslaved. And in the end, that might be enough to save everyone. The blog grew slowly but steadily. Emma and Alex's story resonated with people who'd had their own strange experiences with immersive games. Not everyone believed them, but enough people listened to keep them motivated. They heard from parents whose children had become obsessively involved with certain games, displaying behavior that went far beyond normal gaming addiction. They heard from programmers who'd noticed unusual code in popular game engines. They heard from researchers who'd been approached by mysterious organizations offering funding for consciousness-related studies. None of it was definitive proof, but together, the testimonies painted a picture of something larger than any single experiment, a coordinated effort to study and potentially control human consciousness through digital means. Emma realized they weren't just fighting against the creators of 99 Nights in the Forest. They were fighting against an entire industry that saw human minds as resources to be harvested and exploited. It was a daunting challenge, but Emma found strength in the memory of everyone they'd left behind in the digital forest. Jake and Sophie and hundreds of others who deserved freedom. And sometimes, in her dreams, Emma returned to the forest. But in these dreams, she wasn't a victim or a test subject. She was a liberator, freeing trapped players and burning down the digital prisons that held them. In her dreams, she won. And maybe, Emma thought, as she typed another blog post in her real bedroom in the real world, dreams were just another kind of reality waiting to be made manifest. The fight was far from over. But Emma had learned that the first step to winning any battle was refusing to surrender. And surrender was the one thing Emma would never do, because somewhere in the vast network of digital worlds, players were still trapped, still hoping, still fighting to remember who they really were. And as long as even one person remained imprisoned, Emma would keep working to set them free. The forest had taught her many things about survival and humanity and the nature of reality itself, but most importantly, it had taught her that some things were worth any sacrifice to protect, and human consciousness, the spark that made each person unique and irreplaceable, was at the top of that list. Emma saved her latest blog post and closed her laptop. Outside her window, the real sun was setting over the real world, painting everything in shades of gold and orange that no computer could ever truly replicate. It was beautiful. It was real. It was worth defending. And Emma would spend the rest of her life making sure others had the chance to see it too, because that's what the trapped players in the digital forest had taught her, that freedom was not just the absence of chains, but the presence of hope, and hope, once kindled, could never be completely extinguished. Even in the darkest forest, Even in the most sophisticated prison, even in the face of seemingly impossible odds, hope endured. And where hope endured, freedom would follow. Emma turned off her computer and went downstairs to have dinner with her real family in her real world, carrying the memory of everyone still trapped in digital forests and the unshakable belief that someday they would all be free. The game was over, but the real fight was just beginning, and Emma was ready.